Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Matt Chat. We are brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Those two sponsors probably couldn't be more appropriate for my guest today, a longtime Nike athlete and the newest member of the USA Wrestling coaching staff, the new head coach of the developmental wrestling team, James Green. JG, thanks so much, man. I'm been looking forward to this.
Oh no, thank you for having me on. Like you said, thankful for Nike Wrestling and the things they've done, and obviously thankful for USA Wrestling. I can't wait to be a part of the coaching staff, and I've had a great time being an athlete and wrestling for Team USA, and now I'm planning on helping these up and coming younger guys, lead the way.
Yeah. So Grant Turner is a co-host of my other pod, and I get to talk to him off the air about a lot of athletes. And I know he holds you in super high regard. I think just as much as a human being as a wrestler. So, and he gets to talk to the best of the best. So that's pretty high praise.
Yeah, Grant, man, he's been, my go-to guy since I've been with Nike. If I need anything, he's the guy I can go to, and really appreciate him and the Nike staff.
Yeah, him, Shane, they're all great people. So we were talking a little bit off air about what led up to this decision. And so I think let's go back. I think some people may not know you're from New Jersey, Willingboro High School, I think. And the school, am I right? It didn't even have a wrestling team.
So, yeah, I'm originally born in New York, and my family moved to Willingboro, New Jersey, and that's where I started wrestling at. And when I was young, when I started wrestling, Willingboro community wasn't, you know, known for wrestling. The Scotton family that's there now, still doing the thing for the junior program, had started, in our recreation there at JFK building. And I mean, we had a lot of people coming. Like, the room was packed, and not just from kids from Willingboro either. We had neighboring towns, Cinnaminson, Morristown, Delran, all coming to this room because we had a lot of bodies, a lot of different partners to offer, and yeah, good things were happening. And I started wrestling with them, and at this time, I'm the first, or me and my cousin started wrestling. But other than that, no one in my family's ever wrestled. So it was relatively new to us all, and we're just learning as we went. So, going hitting the tournaments around the state of New Jersey, and then hitting the kid states, and yeah, just getting that experience. And obviously, with that becomes you come into all these different kind of relationships that that I still have to this day, and that kept me in the sport and helped me become who I am today. And but to back to your point, I was the first state champ and the only state champ from my high school. We've
First,
had
middle, and last. Yeah.
yeah, we me, um, two of the Scotton brothers,
Yeah.
and one more person. His name is on the tip of my tongue, but
Okay.
yeah, we were all state finalists, and unfortunately, I was the only one to get it done. But me and my life, childhood partner growing up, Tyler Scott, and he was a two-time finalist, and he went to Boston. He was there before it got cut, and then he finished up at American. But yeah, growing up with a partner like that in the sport of wrestling, it goes a long way because we push each other, and we help get to the D1 level, and do what we do. So
Yeah.
I'm very thankful for Willingboro Wrestling Program, and hopefully, now that I'm actually in this kind of coaching position and with USA Wrestling, I can kind of get back there more often. I've actually done. They had a hometown hero thing. I think before COVID happened, where me and USA Wrestling went back, and I did a free clinic for Willingboro and anyone that could make it
Sure.
pretty much in the area, back where I started wrestling. So that was pretty cool just to have people there, and get back to where I started at. So hopefully we could do some more things like that, and just show not only my town but the people in the surrounding area that you could do a lot with wrestling.
You certainly have. I mean, great career at Nebraska, four-time All-American. And then as great as that is, it feels like you really hit your next gear when you left. I mean, you basically owned that 70 kg weight class for a long time. Obviously, you got to have a great relationship with Mark Manning and Brian Snyder and JB. And, I think most people understand in wrestling, you can't be great without training partners.
Right.
I think kind of when I saw this was one of the questions I always wanted to ask you. How do you think you made Burroughs better? Because I feel like,
Uh,
I mean, you had to, right? I mean, I'm guessing you guys trained all the time together.
yeah, we train a lot, and we did a lot of practices back when I was in school. Because people forget that JB's still 5 years older than me. So, when I was in school, I was actually kind of a little too small. I'd say we drill and whatnot, but nothing to where we're wrestling live or I'm giving them actually hard looks. And I was still developing myself, so I wasn't really ready to wrestle with them at that time. But
Nor was
yeah, I
anybody
was
else in the world. Yeah.
right, right, right. So I was like a little small, undersized, and as I got older and progressed through college and started actually getting on the freestyle scene, then we started really drilling a lot and getting a lot of reps in and wrestling with each other. And every from the outside, like you're saying, looking in, it's oh, you wrestle just like JB, or you learned a lot from JB, and only a few Manning, Snyder, or those that just coaches obviously know that we're different in a lot of areas. So um, I can give him some looks that he needs, and obviously he's one of the best in the world. So I'm just gonna learn off of that. But yeah, I think a lot of times in a hand fight and just being able to move, which are all freestyle related, and it's hard to, nobody really can replicate a Jordan. So it's easy to replicate a lot of these guys in the country that just kind of sit back or just want to hand fight or slow you down. So we made each other better in that area, and because while we can, one person maybe sit back and try to hand fight and control the mat, you can also flip that switch and then pick it up a little bit. So that was always fun, cat and mouse kind of games. And yeah, we just obviously fed off each other, and just on the competitive side, whether it was conditioning workouts or pool workouts, we just made each other better.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot easier for a fast guy to imitate a slow guy than a
Right,
slow guy
right,
to
right.
imitate a fast guy, which I think is what you're saying.
Hmm.
I would also think that your top game, I mean, you're the lace man. I mean, and
Yeah,
there's seen all these videos now, like when you did Deacon Dirty and some of these other people, and um, I would think, especially as you get older, it's a lot easier to score points from that position than like it's a lot easier to get a takedown in four laces than it is to get
yeah,
five takedowns. Maybe not
yeah.
easier. Let me that sounds disrespectful.
Hmm.
Less energy. Like if you can secure the hold, if you can be
Right.
world class at it, it's less energy.
Yeah, yeah. You definitely want to be more efficient, and obviously it blows a match open. You go from whether you're getting a 10-0 or you get a takedown in two turns, then that's a big difference in a match, especially at the high level. And it's funny because I drill these things and you practice it, but I never really got into practice, so it's a it's a weird thing that I guess I just kind of developed. It's hard to I always get after I wrestled Ashnault the one time I laced him, I kind of got scared of doing my laces in practice because I didn't want to tear. It was such a
Yeah, when you
freak
hurt him. Yeah.
accident when I
Yeah.
wrestled him that I'm like, dang, I don't want to hurt anybody in practice. Out of competition, it's just like, all right, I'm gonna get to it. But in practice, it was like, oh, if I lace it up and I can get it, I'll try. But if it's gonna get any crazy, then I won't even attempt it. And I tried to start working on my gut because everyone knew the lace was coming. So yeah,
Right. But I mean, in freestyle, those are the two basic ways you turn guys. I mean, like there's
right.
not nine different ways. I mean, there's modifications on how people do
Hmm.
their lace, and there's trap arm, no trap arm, but that's it. Like in Greco, there's only one of those. That's why it's so hard to score.
Right, right.
That or lift, right?
Hmm.
So yeah. So obviously a couple years ago, you move over to the Southeast RTC. And like I was talking to Roby, I was doing interviews at NCAs. Like I interviewed Andonian, and
Hmm.
what a cool kid to talk to, and just completely open,
Right.
like just an emotionally open person. He talked about some of his struggles in the season. He talked about his relationship with some of you guys, and obviously Roby, Brewer, Frayer, especially being around that size, get a lot of credit and should. But I think because like you're not down there on the floor because you're an RTC athlete, people tend to forget this dude was probably wrestling with James Green a couple times a week at least. So maybe tell me about your relationship with Bryce and your assessment of how he wrestled.
Man, Bryce is he's one of a kind. He's one of the most entertaining guys to wrestle um, in the NCAA. Watch wrestle in the NCAA level, and it translates well into freestyle. Obviously, he was on the junior world team and he won a bronze. He definitely could have been a world champ, and that comes with experience. But yeah, Bryce is he's definitely made me better in freestyle just because you always got to watch out. He's tricky. He's a tricky individual. But he's a hard worker, and I can't say that we spend much time wrestling folk style, but when we when we're in the room, he's very coachable. He'll listen. He sometimes he can get down on himself because he knows, just like anyone else, you want to be the best, and when things aren't clicking, sometimes it gets frustrating. But he keeps showing up. He keeps coming to the room. So um, that's one thing I like about Bryce. And again, like you said, he's kind of open, so he'll let you know how he feels, whether with wrestling or his words. And we've had some battles, and I'm thankful for Bryce and the whole Virginia Tech staff in the room. And I can't say how much I've attributed it. I'm definitely, we've definitely talked just mental talk and how we feel going into the matches and events or things of that nature. And yeah, he's going to be around a long time, as long as he wants to be around. So I see a bright future for Bryce.
Well, I would think a guy like him, a guy like Mackay, that have already won what they've won at that age, there's, and I don't mean to imply they're not coachable, but I think somebody that's won a lot that says, hey, think of about it this way, look at it this way. That if two people say that, one person's won nothing, at least not nearly as much as they have, and then the person that has the credentials that you do, those two people could be saying the identical thing, and it's probably going to be received differently because you have a different level of credibility.
True, true. And I think that just kind of goes to the person. For example, for myself, like I was a stubborn person, so I mean, it doesn't really matter who. When I was coming up in college and high school, I was just it didn't really the credentials didn't matter. It's just more about the relationship, and I think that's how you. It's easier to convey your messages once you build that relationship. So regardless of what you've done on or off the mat, you just got to remember that we're human beings. So you don't have to yell at anyone. You could just talk to them and present yourself in a decent manner, and I think it's easy to get that message across. And I think that's one of my strengths, because I'm not gonna disrespect you if you don't disrespect me. And then if we're in the wrestling room, that we don't have to talk. We can wrestle until we get it figured out. So
We'll figure out this the easy way or the hard way, right?
yeah. So that was kind of my approach in the room, especially with like Bryce or somebody. So yeah, again, it just depends on the athlete and the coach and the relationship.
You can come get it if you want it, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you and I were talking, and I want you to sort of explain this to everybody. How did the transition go from being an RTC athlete competing, sort of being an unofficial part of that coaching staff, to where you are now, retiring from being an athlete from competition to stepping into this coach's role?
Yeah, it was, man, honestly a lot of timing, a lot of universe, a lot of, I don't know, just things aligning at this right time. Um, because I've been always dealing with my right hip. I had right hip surgery in 2017, my labrum, and I had no cartilage, and that's always been a thing. And I've always gone back and forth with the doctors as far as checking up, and I've always, since 2017, just kind of been making progress to being on the right track, which obviously I was. I was wrestling, still doing the things that I can do, still made a world team, and competing to my best of my ability. So you have that factor, and then also just a little bit of mental factor, like, okay, now that I've fixed this problem, that I'm going to get back to where I was, and um, be, as far as internationally, be winning medals and possibly winning world titles and things of that nature. So while that was happening, again wrestling, competing, and then it just kind of started coming back, and I got it checked out, and really the progress that I made just kind of reverted back to where I was prior to surgery. So um, obviously, again, I can wrestle, I could compete. It's just as far as me and my quality of life after wrestling, and yeah, the quality of life I'll have while coaching. Because when the opportunity was presented, it kind of made me think about life after wrestling, when I would be done and what I would be doing. And I've always wanted to coach and have my own club. So I was always on the fence of, do I want to get into college coaching when I'm done, or do I want to, open up a club? And all these things again are going on. So prior to talking with USA Wrestling, I was actually like in the process of looking at a space to rent, trying to get mats to put down and
Not a
start
bad
my own
club to
club.
start with.
Right. So then I was presented with this opportunity, and obviously it's the junior developmental program. These kids that will be a part of the program want to be there. They're already at the kind of elite level, and I want to further their knowledge and perhaps get an early start on their international careers. So um, that came across, and then after talking with USA Wrestling, it was just like, well, we want you to be all in. And I said, oh, well, I'm all in competing right now. So then there was that. It was just like, okay, thanks for the opportunity. I'm still going to compete. And then I went to Urigan, went to Istanbul, and again, this whole injury still kind of nagging me more than it was usually. So USA Wrestling comes back, and like, they're just like, hey, we were really interested. You should think about it, and how can we make this work? And I was just like, well, let me go check, because again, I do a yearly check with my hip. So I said, let me go get this thing checked out. It's kind of bothering me. I'm going to compete if everything is right. Then I'm going to compete. And again, thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, so I went out and had the checkup, and again, like I said before, I'm just kind of, it's reverted back to where it was, as far as my hip joint and socket kind of being bone on bone. Um, and there's not really telling how long it's been like that. So when you think about that kind of stuff, and they could go in and clean it up or do whatever so I can get back to wrestling. But I've done it once, and the rehab's no fun, and it's no
Yeah.
joke. So yeah, it's just the perfect timing, as far as, okay, let's do this thing. Let's I'm out on my own terms. It's not like I went to World Team Trials, got beat, left my shoes on the mat, and everyone's like, oh, he's not even gonna try. There's just
Yeah.
so many things that go into it. And
Yeah.
from the competitor standpoint too, as far as me wrestling, how I have been wrestling, I needed the perfect storm. My legs got to feel good, and the weight's got to be good. I couldn't have any hiccups in practice, or I'm going to be wrestling already hindered, more
Yeah.
hindered than I am, you know, before stepping on the mat. So all these things just kind of go on, and it's just like, all right, I could be happy where I'm at with what I've done. Because when I first put on the shoes, this wasn't even a thought. I was just
Yeah.
wrestling just to go to tournaments, get some Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and eat pizza. So now we're here.
That's awesome.
Right. Now we're here, and I'm happy. So.
Yeah. It's a great answer and super interesting. This is the program that Kevin Jackson was running,
Hmm.
for people that may not connect it. And I've known Kevin since I was literally a freshman in college. His brother was my roommate at Iowa State. So
Wow.
he would always pop in, and was really, I think he had to be nice to me because I was his brother's roommate, but he was nice to me. And, I've talked to him, a lot, like with Josh Saunders and, some of those guys that have gone
Right.
out there came from our program. And so are you talking to guys like KJ, guys that have been involved with this to get advice, insight, like things like that?
So we made the it's been almost a week since the announcement. A lot of we've been on the Skypes and whatnot, trying to fill me in on the different contacts and people to talk to. And KJ obviously did a great job. And prior to his departure, he had pretty much this year kind of set up in place. So coaches are picked for the championships and the Pan Ams. And really, it's just kind of me coordinating, like, where can I be and how can I get there. And I don't want to just say showing up, but he had it set up to where I'm just, well, hey, I'm here now, and this is how it's going to be. And so just trying to get up to speed on how things work has been, as far as this past week has gone. And then there have been people reaching out to USA Wrestling as far as being a part of the development program. But yeah, I'm working on, or me and my wife are looking on trying to get out there next month sometime, and then we can really hit the ground running. So my first little coaching job or assignment is going to be at the Open, so it'll be nice to be out there, meeting the cadets and the juniors, shaking hands and seeing new faces and in the new role as a coach. So it'll be pretty.
You have
cool.
to be clean. You're gonna be in a lot of
Right.
pictures. You're gonna have a lot of stop signs, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's I know, like the kid, like Lee Pritz and I are friends, and he was a lot of the assistant coaches on those teams, and he just talked about KJ's energy and his ability to relate to those kids and coach them to keep it fun. I was able to see that in the corner, like I said, with Josh and some of those other things.
Right.
And and I think you're in a great position because you've won so much, you've been coached by great people, and then your network is super deep. Like if there's people, I'm sure there are, but the people that you respect,
Right.
you can ask them, like, coach or whoever it is, how would you handle this, and get input, and then put your own stamp on the program. Are there one or two things that you're the most excited about?
Honestly, I think that I enjoy the fact that I already know that, again, the kids that are going to want to be there, they want to be there, and they want to win, obviously. So that alone can drive the program or the energy in the room through the roof. And I'm looking forward to seeing these kids know that, because when you get on a certain stage, you're like, man, I belong here, or I can do this. And to hit that point where you can make that recognition that I can win a world title, I can be an NCAA champ. And they might already think that, but to actually sit on it and be on a big stage and say I belong here, and hopefully have a little part and influence in that, that's what I'm looking forward to. So
I remember KJ told me the story of Aaron Brooks when he was the alternate, and Brooks actually wrestled in my event, so I got to meet him. He's a super nice guy, and he's like, he was the alternate, and he goes, we knew he was good, but I think he was behind Whitlake or somebody got hurt or whatever. I don't know if I got that part exactly right. He goes, my man showed up with his own flag. He goes, that's when I
yeah, that's it. That's right there. That's exciting.
Yeah, Joe Russell was on. He explained to me which hand goes. You have to hand the flag to the guy the right way. Like, that's his job. So,
that's funny. Yeah, man, that's awesome. Like, just stories like that too. And like you were saying before, how long you've known KJ. When I first got on, again, I'm coming from Willingboro, New Jersey. I didn't start doing freestyle or on the big scene until I got to college. So first time going to the Olympic Training Center when I was in college, and Bill was the developmental coach. So I've had that relationship since making my first university team, and
that's awesome.
I think those kind of relationships just go a long way, and those stories and those connections. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, to me, like, all you guys are barbershop guys, where you guys could tell stories for hours and
Right,
just keep
right.
letting people go ahead of you just to listen to the stories. Like, I'll pay for my chair. I'm good. Like, like, let people keep rolling in ahead of you and just listen to the, those are the real stories. Like, hopefully this podcast, you get a little bit of it, but people are always a little guarded. But like those barbershop guys are
Yeah.
Everybody's sitting around watching the UFC and everybody's had a cocktail or two. That's when you get the real stories.
Yeah, yeah. I got a, like I said, I've known Bill since 2013, and not just Bill, but a lot of wrestlers. So I've been on a lot of trips and have some good stories that I like. So
We have to get you back on after you get a couple world champs and talk about
right,
that.
right,
Like
right. Yeah,
with the Joe
that's the
Russell
plan.
stories. Joe
Yeah.
Russell, I was standing next to him in Raleigh a couple years ago at the World Team Trials,
Uh,
and the power goes out. And I go to Joe, I go, "What happened?" He goes, "All I tried to do is plug in myself."
yeah,
I was like,
Joe's got all the jokes, man.
yeah,
I love Joe Russell, man. He's a trip.
yeah. And just like deadpan delivery too, like just perfect. I'm like, you got a second career, bro. If this one don't work
Yeah,
out,
he's hilarious.
Yeah.
He always knows how to keep the trip light and happy. He's cool to be around.
There's a lot of value to that because kids
Yeah.
are nervous.
Mm-hmm.
People have spent money.
Oh yeah.
All their friends know they're over there, that kind of thing. So like people that can. I mean, you wrestled at this level multiple times in college and high school and international. Like sometimes it isn't who's better. It's sometimes people that just get out of their own way the best. It seems like.
Yeah. I'd to touch back on Joe. It's funny and how we were talking about the relationships again. Um, you have selective hearing, and I tell you what, when I'm wrestling or when I was wrestling, Joe's voice was like one of those voices that I always heard, no matter what.
Yeah.
Like he's a very unique person. I got a lot of
Well,
respect for Joe.
selective hearing is actually the way to say it because like anybody who's coached you that you trust, like
Right,
you can pick their voice out of 1,000.
right, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, all the
So.
people coaching from the crowd telling you, like, "You gotta
Mm-hmm.
score." Like, no kidding. Really? I gotta score? I'm losing by
You
1?
gotta
Nobody
shoot.
told me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, I guess, one of the things I'm interested in is, you've had so many people pour knowledge into you, and I like, I mean, same for me. I mean, but I didn't win what you won. But to me, like, when I think about who taught me the most, it wasn't like somebody taught me the perfect way to finish a double leg or to hit a leg lace or whatever the case may be. Can you maybe tell me just about one or two people in a scenario where like these people had a super positive impact on your life, obviously through wrestling?
Yeah. Well, if anyone that knows me, I'll start with the number one guy is a guy, family friend, Bob Casa, who never wrestled before, but he's been around wrestling. And he's just he's got an eye for it. I'd say he knows when a kid has potential, or this kid, kid's pretty good, and he's got a lot of contact with these D1 coaches, and they know who he is, and he's always in someone's ear about someone. So um, he's definitely instilled in me just kind of being nice and you know truthful and upfront with people. And he's a big influence in my life, and he's not only him, but I'd have to go back to the Scotton family, who's got me started in wrestling. And our motto too, which kind of leads to how I wrestled and what I think about wrestling at Willingboro, was take down a win. So we prioritize getting takedowns more than one too. So um, Tom Scotton and Steve Scotton, their brothers, and Danny Scotton, they're all very influential in just my start in wrestling and how I got started, and everyone else kind of it's like that snowball effect. They got me rolling, and then everyone else came pushing along. So I can keep going about a lot of people. I don't like to leave anyone out.
No,
Um,
yeah.
but definitely, yeah, Bob Acosta and the Scotton family have really been influential in my life and wrestling.
Well, your credentials are obviously insane. You're 100 times qualified for the position. The first time you and I have ever talked or in the same conversation was on a BWA conference call. You know what I mean? Like, I've been
Right.
in Nebraska. Jason High wrestled for us at Merrimack. I know he's friends with you guys, but you know, how do you see this as a person of color, as a minority in a leadership position? Obviously, following KJ, USA Wrestling is clearly diverse and inclusive. But I mean, is there an extra level of pride in that? I don't want to ask the dumb question like they asked Doug Williams, what's it like to be a black quarterback? And like, well, how would I know what it is to be a white quarterback? But I mean, do you feel any extra responsibility? You just see it as well, just this happens to be me, or how do you view that?
It's a mixture of things, but I definitely, as far as just where I come from, and the fact that we don't have wrestling at my high school anymore, or wrestling wasn't even that big of a thing. I think one, to have someone, African American or any in a position of a coaching position such as this, it just shows that it's possible, it's doable, and that um, you don't always have to go off and do basketball or football, and also just the sport in general. Wrestling is for everyone, and I think that's where we kind of lose that. Especially in Willingboro, in my community, we're very big in track and football and basketball. So I've got a lot of response and a lot of feedback just from people I went to school with and people in my town, and because when I was there, it wasn't that much recognition. They didn't really know what was going on. So again, I keep going back to my town just because we don't have wrestling anymore, and we definitely could use it. And not just my town, but other communities which BWA is trying to serve and reach to. So to be here is just to be a better example, not only to the people that I grew up with, or um, the people that are coming behind me. So I hope that I can show that, again, that it's possible. That you don't really have to be the best, but as long as you work hard and um, respect everyone, anyone, it could take you a long way. And that's what I like about wrestling. There's some crazy people out there, but we're a good community, and everyone's gonna have an open door for you. So I have a lot of respect for wrestling, and I've gotten a lot of respect from people. So
Like you said, if you don't want it, we could always just go to the mat and figure it out,
right,
right?
right.
So the other thing, as I was preparing for this interview and we texted and you agreed to do it, like I'm super interested in your opinion on this. I don't know if you would consider it a sore subject. I think you were just kind of caught. But what are your thoughts on the Olympic weights? And I'll go
Oh
my
man,
opinion,
yeah,
because like it looks like you're perfect for 70. Okay.
yeah,
Like I don't know how much weight you cut or didn't cut. And I mean, you can certainly tell us, I'd be interested, but 74. I mean, and the other thing is people like it's 8.8 pounds up and it's,
right,
11 pounds down. And those kilograms kind of make people think it's not that far when it's a lot
right.
farther than it is.
Oh
And I
yeah,
saw you at the Olympic trials at 65, and I'm sure you did it perfectly. I'm sure you did the test cuts and did everything
yeah,
else and
yeah.
got with the nutritionist, and you just weren't you.
Hmm.
And I'm like, this dude is not designed to be 143 pounds. Like,
No,
you
no.
know, so what are your thoughts? Because the weight classes just get picked randomly. Like, the weight class could have been 150 and 170 instead of 145 and 163.
Right, right. Um, well, I'm kind of torn between it because, again, I'm I'm here, I'm talking to you, or I'm been this 70-kilo guy because they introduced the weight in 2014. Because prior to that, 2014 and 20, I think one year I wrestled 163, and that's coming out of college after wrestling 157. And I'm like, oh, this is, I can obviously wrestle 163. That's not that much. And it was. I was too small still, even though I wrestled 157. We were back then still doing night before weigh-ins. So I remember showing up to weigh-ins, not even after doing anything, just stepped on a scale. I was underweight. And then I wrestled to make my first university team. I wrestled 145, and that's coming off of, again, a college season at 157. So it's so crazy because I relatively been around the same weight since I graduated high school or college. So you know, if they didn't introduce 70 kilos in the non-Olympic or years, then I'd either been cutting weight the whole time or going up. So I don't cut much weight. for 154. Like you said, I'm kind of perfect when I'm training, and when I'm in it, I'm 164, 165. So if you're going on an Olympic year, I'm either 2 pounds over or 22 pounds over,
Yeah.
and you know
Which is
that's
gigantically
crazy.
different.
It's crazy. And prior to COVID, I was like, oh, I'm gonna bump up. I'm gonna, get big, and actually ended up wrestling 74 kilos, and then COVID hit, and I was working my way down. Just from as soon as COVID hit and quarantine, I had lost everything that I had put on, and I even when I was lifting, the biggest I got was like 170. You know, so it's definitely it sucks because there's nothing I could do about it, and
Yeah.
you can control what you can control, and as I was getting small, within that span of COVID, I wrestled 74 kilos to all the way to 65 kilos. I don't know if anyone's or ever done that within a year. So that was pretty crazy. And man, when I was thinking about this position and retiring, I'm like, watch right when I do it, they're gonna be like, oh, 70 kilos in
They're
the
going to switch
Olympics.
the Olympics. If they do that, we're going to record, like, this recording is going to go viral if that happens.
Right. So that was the only thing, because again, that was the only. I've been to the World Championships a bunch of times. Obviously, I just want to hopefully get to the Olympics, but yeah, if they do that, then oh man, I don't know. I'll have to strap on the shoes or something. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting, right? Like, there's certain guys that are just built for weights,
yeah. I'm
like I
pretty
talked.
sure. I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys that are wrestling 143, when they're not cutting weight, they could possibly be getting bigger than me, or if not the same size. So it's like you said, I'm just perfect for it. Perfect for
Yeah,
70.
I had Pantaleo on after he won I can't remember which tournament is now. You would know, but where he, like, back in a couple months ago, he was like ranked the number one guy in the world or won some big tournament over there. And he was saying how he basically was like you, like he just walks, like he didn't even check his weight most days. Like he's just perfect for 70,
Yeah, yeah,
and, eats healthy, but eats, I'm sure a lot because he's burning a truckload of calories. But that dissension down is a big deal. And the podcast that Grant Turner and Mark Ostrander and I talk about is like the 2024 Olympic team really started with the 20 Olympics and the 21 World Championships. Because if you keep medaling, you keep sitting, and then you're
hmm
basically at worst the Olympic alternate. And so, like I was lucky enough to be one of the announcers at the trials, which were the
yeah,
2020 Olympics, but we're in 21. And I mean, like, some of those weights, like 57 and 65, like you see all these, like all the guys in the middle go up or down, and then,
right,
like the ones above come down or up. In the case of 65, obviously there's nothing below 57, but it's just like
yeah.
watching the world. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's it's not. I don't think it's fair because obviously the Olympics, the pinnacle. Then you have these people, the non-Olympic weight people, have to decide. And yeah, it doesn't matter what you can go up. It's almost like respect. Some people can do it, but I think if you're going to go up or down, you would it's you're caught with the dilemma, because you can either take that year to try and adjust and go down and do all that, but then you miss out on somewhere where you're comfortable, obviously your weight, and then the opportunity to be a world champ or win a world
Right.
medal. And I think it's just it's too quick of a turnaround. Because you even think of a guy like David Taylor, who was 74 kilos and then bumped up to 86. He didn't make that adjustment right away, So I think it takes more than that quick turnaround. You have September World Championships or October, whatever, and then you turn around with your Olympic trials in April. So to gain or lose 20 pounds or put on 20 pounds of muscle or whatever for whoever would whatever you want to choose, it's tough. So it's I think they should fix it. I think they should figure out a solution. I'm not sure what it is. Hopefully in this role I could we could
Yeah.
figure it out or do something and yeah, make it work.
Well, Taylor's an interesting story when you look at up to that point. He never lost to Burroughs in a competitive match, or at least a 2 out of 3 series. He never, or never beat him, rather, never beat
Right.
Dake, and had
Right.
never beaten Jaden. And then Dake's a bronze medalist. JB's doing commentary. We know what happened with Jaden, and DT wins the gold medal. Like, you could have probably got long odds on that when you stacked all that stuff up. Just
Yeah.
stuff happens goofy. Jaden's another guy where, like, he seems like he's pretty perfect for 92.
Right. Right.
He's made 86, was gigantic, and
Yeah.
obviously is going up to 97. But it's crazy because, like, you look at our world championship team, and, like, you want James Green and Jordan Burroughs both in your lineup. You want Jaden Cox and Kyle Snyder
Yeah.
both in your lineup. You want Kyle Dake and Jordan Burroughs both in your lineup. And it's there's so many good guys that don't make the team with 10 weights.
Hmm.
Like when you're making the team, a Jordan Oliver's not, a Pantaleo's not, all these other guys that you obviously know better than me, but these dudes you've had battles with that are really, really good. And there can only
Yeah.
be one. And then you start funneling that down, and it's really crazy.
Yeah. 10 to 6. It's crazy. Crazy
So
condensed.
when do you make the move to Colorado Springs?
We're looking so hopefully mid-May because right this is almost like the perfect downtime because after June to June you got your trials and then we start hitting the World Championship. So I don't want to kind of be caught up in moving and trying to figure all that stuff out. But I think we're right now we found like a little place out there. So yeah, we just gotta get all packed up and make it happen. So
Well, I'm sure I'll see you even more now, and probably in a more relaxed role, like in Vegas and
oh yeah,
Coralville and all these other things. And I, I got to tell you, I've enjoyed watching you wrestle over the years. It's you're really you were I say were now, I guess you were really fun to watch.
thank you.
Although I'm sure you could strap it on still.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
and I just think how you carried yourself, win or lose. Uh, your character always came through. And I think that's the kind of thing, USA Wrestling smart. You want somebody who's a winner, but you also want somebody who's a leader, especially with these young men at this age. And so I think USA Wrestling obviously did really well. And just, it's cool to be able to formally congratulate you on the new gig, man.
thank you. It really means a lot. And like you said, I'll be seeing a lot more of you most likely, and um, have much more discussions. And yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of success coming USA Wrestling's way.
Well, if you decide to come in for junior duels, we're talking right now about doing like these like updates in between rounds, and it'd be fun to get you on there. If you come into Tulsa in June, let me know.
Oh, all right. We'll see. We'll see what we can make happen.
Get you,
Definitely
me, and
keep me
Hardell
posted.
doing the play-by-play together. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I guess start working on my commentary too.
All you got to do is be smart. I'll just ask you easy questions about how, like, what this guy should be doing. When
Right,
guys
right.
are really smart about wrestling, it's not that hard. Like,
Uh,
you would know what every challenge is about and why they should be
mhm.
doing it and all that other stuff. Like, my job is just to tee you up to be as smart as you are.
Oh, all
So,
right. I like it. I like it.
well, thank you again. I really enjoyed it. Ladies and gentlemen, your new USA Wrestling developmental coach, James Green. I'm David Mirikitani. We'll speak to y'all next week.
Thanks, David.